connectors, we have seen now the end-to-end, which is also called as packaged. Yep. So this is just a kind of a quick summary that we are doing, right? In this, we saw MX, MasterCard, there are Visa, there is VSP, WageWorks. These are all benefit ones. The other one was all those are the credit card one. Okay. So these are the examples of end-to-end package connector, which why they are called end-to-end, because they are specifically made for these vendors, right? So it can only be used with these vendors, right? And nothing, it's not for any other use. So that's why this is packaged. Now we will start on the generic connectors, right? Why they are called generic? Because they serve a purpose. They are not for any specific vendor, but they help in achieving a general functionality. Okay, now a very common example, which everyone, wherever you go, any interview you go, they will ask about that, and that's called core connector worker, right? So it's a generic connector, right? By Workday, what it does, it gives you it. There is a term which is used called change detection. Okay. Now, as the name says, it is worker related. So it gives you the data which is related to employee, right? Now you say in your HR world, say you are implementing Workday HR, you have to integrate or send employee related data to many systems. Sometimes any system like training system or your Active Directory or any other system, right? Where you have to provision the account. Meaning, if there is a new hire in your HR system, the information has to be sent to that system. If the employee is terminated, it has to be sent to the other system so that they can remove the account, right? A very common example I can tell you is, suppose you have a training platform like Skillsoft or something, right? So there is a team which supports that. Now your account is there in that. Why? Because you're active employee, right? How will that system get to know that you're active? From your HR system, whenever you are hired, that data has to be sent to that system. Then only you will get access to that. Again, if you're terminated, then again that data will be sent there so that your account gets removed. Plus, say if you get transferred or if you get promoted from a consultant to a manager, that information also has to be sent to the training system. Why? Because if you're consultant, you will see different set of trainings. If you're manager, you will see different set of trainings. So everything is related, right? So change detection means any changes happening on an employee will be detected and can be sent, right? And the changes can be any. That's what is called change detection. The opposite of this is called a full file, right? Now say a very common example to make you understand about this concept is, suppose a system give you a requirement that yes, every week Monday morning 6 a.m. I want the employee file from your system, right? Now suppose there are 10,000 employees in your company, right? Now every Monday morning, is it a good practice to send all 10,000? No, right? It's a very big file. It's a waste of memory. It's again not a good from a performance point of view, all that. From a data security point of view, right? It's not a best practice. So what that system needs to know is, in the last 1 week, if there are any changes, any new hire or anything has changed, send me only that part. Don't send me the full data, right? So that's the difference between a full file and a change detection, right? How do they do change detection is based on the last updated date time of any event, right? Suppose if you're running your integration, since from date and to date, you give that funda, right? So if there is any changes between that, it will pick that up and send it, right? From a concept point of view, do you guys have any questions about this before I move to the document? This is to give you a basic of core connector worker. What it does change detection. And what it means is that sending only the employee data only for those employees on whose profile there has been some changes in the past.
Whenever we are talking regarding the full file, it means the changed file only, right?
No. Full file is separate. Change file is separate. Full file meaning
complete file.
everything.
Okay, and change
Complete
file is the recent changes.
Only the changes.
Changes
Right.
file. Yeah.
So for example, say we all are part of a company, right? So the first file will have 5 rows. 5 rows, right? Vibhas, Jyoti, Vikram, Afsha, and Shravan. Next week, suppose you got promoted, right? So in that file, there will be only your record because our records are just the same. There has been no changes.
Okay.
That kind of stuff. Okay.
So how do we pick this data? It's like, is there any effective dated rows?
Yeah. That's what now we will see how Workday does that.
Okay.
Okay. So now coming to this part of the core connector worker. All right. So as you say, this system exports worker data changes from Workday in a simple XML format, right? So as you do hire, promotion, transfer, termination, or update worker, the integration generates the text file only containing the changes, right? So what it does is that's what I said, change detection. Worker, core connector worker, this connector, what it does, it detects the changes to worker by monitoring a transaction log. And we will see what that transaction log is. And so the core connector worker uses a 3-step process to detect and report the changes. First is it checks the transaction log. And that's again a configuration. We will see that. Then for each worker with a matching transactional change, it compares the report fields at the time that integration was last run. And so last updated date time kind of thing. Since you ran the integration last time and now you are running it, so between that time, if there has been any changes, it will check that. And there is something called eligibility criteria that also needs to be satisfied. We will see all of these in detail now, right? So this core connector worker, we can also make it generate a full file, right? So it has that option as well. Then it also has a configuration of setting up an eligibility criteria. And it is done using a calculated field, which is of type Boolean. Boolean in the sense true, false. Okay. Now say, for example, you want only the employees from whose country work country is US, right? For those only this integration should run. So it will only choose those employees and then check whether there has been any changes or not, right? So suppose your organization has 1,000 employees. Out of those 1,000, 100 are in US, right? So if you put an eligibility criteria, if you don't put an eligibility criteria, your integration will check all 1,000 if there has been any changes on all these 1,000 people. But if you put an eligibility criteria, Workday will first filter out. So say we have put a eligibility criteria that work location is US. So now how many employees meet this criteria is 100. So then this integration will check the changes on those 100 only. So out of those 100, if say 50 has undergone some changes since the last run, it will pick only that. So it kind of limits your scope of the employees, right? And then come integration services. Again, here as well, we have, as like other connectors, we have services. Now, what services we choose is depending on our requirement, right? So we have personal data section fields, worker status related field, worker section related field, and all that, right? So let's see that. Let's do it in the tenant and then see. Okay, let me go to the tenant, right? So what's the task? How will I create this integration? Create integration system, same task. And I will give int underscore test, right? And then template name will be core connector worker, right? So this one, and then okay, right? Now you see we have got the services, right? So in the beginning you don't know what is what, right? You have transaction log here, you have qualification data, identification data, compensation data. So what I'll do is I'll select all. Okay, so it will select all, and then I will say, now here there is another option of create integration service. We will do that, but first let me explain what this will do, right? Click on OK, and then as you do OK, like other connectors which we saw, it has attributes and maps. Why it is showing an error here is because there are some attributes which are required for launch, right? Required for launch, so it is saying configure those first. Now let's see what the attributes are. Configure integration attributes. Now first it is saying output file name. What do you want to keep the name of the file? Let me say it is test underscore output dot xml. Output document tag, it is just for tagging the document, not required, right? You can say output or whatever you want to tag it. Then is version, which is the version of the output file required for launch. So that means it has to be configured. And what we do in version is we select the latest one. Output format is XML. Then includes inactive worker in full file, right? So this is an option that Workday has given. You can select, click on plus, either yes or no, right? If you select it, it will, all the inactive worker as well, it will keep into its consideration. So we don't want it. Name type. Now this is all based on your requirement. If the other system says I want the legal name, so you will choose the legal name, right? If you select this part and you can choose. Either you want legal name, formal name, others, or whatever, preferred name, depends on what, right? By default, it is legal. Then country ISO code, right? Each employee has a country associated with it in the output. Whether you want the 2-digit code, like for USA, it is like for US or USA, right? Alpha digit 2 or 3. For India, IND is the alpha 3 code and IN is the 2. So depending on what the vendor wants, we can choose that, right? So if you click on this, it becomes like this, and you can choose 2 or 3. Then again, similarly for address type, everything here is driven by requirement, right? Address usage and this, phone type, whether you want home or work, email type, home or work. So Workday has by default added work because 90% of the time it's work, right? Include prior values, right? That means suppose if there are any changes, as you see, this connector is used for change detection. Say I got a transfer. So my previous department was 1 and the new department is 2. So if you put include prior values as 2, it will give prior value as 1 and new value as 2. So it will give that. Right? And all these are, there are description mentioned here. If you have any confusion, you check with the team who has provided you the requirement, like either the vendor and all that. Okay. Then here you have in the last, the retention policy. Any questions? Nope. So I'll click on OK. So this was attributes. Again, these are one-time configurable values, right? Which you don't change every time. So you do it once.